something. Okay, so this is the Thus Spake Jesus series, the practical part of the medical missionary training. And I want to welcome you out, my dear brothers and sisters. And I hope that next time we will have even more persons. And even you can also bring your friends because who are not Christians. Okay, so Paul, in writing to the Corinthians, in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, our scripture reading, he says, taking it from verse 24, he says, know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize. And he says, so run that he may obtain. And every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible. And he continues, he says, I therefore so run, not as uncertainly, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air, but I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. So tonight we are talking about temperance. What are we talking about tonight? Temperance. Right? I said something a little bit about temperance on Sunday. I don't know if you understood what I was saying. Did you understand what I was saying on Sunday? Imagine if you don't understand it, tell me, Because when we communicate, if there is no understanding, then there is something wrong with the communication. Right? So that's why I'm asking if you understood what I was saying on Sunday when I was talking about temperance and what it will do for us. So we are looking at temperance again tonight, but for the rest of the series, we will look at different topics. But tonight, I'm dealing with temperance. Now, what is temperance? Now, when I checked the dictionary on temperance, they use words like moderation. They use phrases like abstaining from alcohol. And that was about it, basically. Right? So, and that was about it. That it had to do with alcohol. But for us, temperance is much more than that. Right? If I would define temperance, I would say temperance is to abstain from all things that are harmful and to use judiciously the things that are good. Right? So, coffee, tea, those things, harmful. So we don't use the coffee and tea. We don't drink coffee and tea. Alcohol, harmful. We don't drink alcohol. But food is good, right? If they say vegetables and fruits, good things to eat. So those we use in moderation. Because we can overdo it with the vegetables. We can overdo it with the fruits. We can overdo it with our food. Right? So temperance has to do with using judiciously the things that are good to use and to abstaining from the things that are harmful. Now, how important to us is temperance? How important to us is temperance? From the book Counsels on Diet and Foods, from the book Counsels on Diets and Foods, page 24, has something to say about that. It says, it is our duty to understand and respect the principles of health reform. On the subject of temperance, and the subject of what? Temperance. And we are to understand and respect the principles of health reform, right? Now, on the subject of temperance, listen to this now. We should be in advance of all people. You want to be in advance of all people? On the subject of temperance, we should be in advance of all people. And this was not written yesterday. And yet, there are among us well-instructed members of the church and even ministers of the gospel who have little respect for the light that God has given upon this subject. Right? So the focus is that temperance is, are you with me? Temperance is what? Temperance is so important, Sister Bedwell. Temperance is so important that to us as a people, as Seventh-day Adventists, that we should be in advance of all people in regard to temperance. So when the world is only talking about temperance being something to do with alcohol, we should be way in advance of that. We know that temperance have to do with more than alcohol. All right? So temperance, we should be way in advance of the world with temperance. Now, as I said earlier, that when I looked up temperance, I saw that the focus was on alcohol and doing things in moderation. Now, what are some of the things that we should take in consideration as we talk about temperance? Now, I'm going to share with you from the book Christian Temperance and Bible Hygiene, page 33, dealing with some of the things that we want to consider, that we should definitely consider when it comes on to temperance. Because as a people, we should be way in advance of the world regarding temperance. Right? Okay, I'm reading. It says, wherever we go, we encounter the tobacco devotee. That is the person who, in Sister White's time, they used to chew tobacco. They used to have the tobacco leaves and they chew the tobacco. And maybe if you watch those old Western shows, you might see some cowboy chewing the tobacco and then, just spitting it out like that. So, and they also roll it and smoke it. So wherever we go, we encounter the tobacco devotee. Now in our time, we still encounter the tobacco devotee, But tobacco now is big business, right? That's a cigarette. That's a cigarette. Wherever we go, we encounter the tobacco devotee, enfeebling both mind and body by his darling indulgence. Have men a right to deprive their Maker and the world of the service which is their due? Tobacco is a slow, insidious poison Tobacco is a what? A slow poison. So consider that. When we see somebody smoking, we consider that it's a poison. And even the sellers of tobacco now, those who package it and sell it, those big companies, the laws of the land are that they should point out to people that really this is poison, it's going to kill you. So they will show you some gruesome pictures on the box of what the thing will do. So we can see that clearly. The cigarette, the tobacco, is a slow poison because it is one of the major risk factors in diabetes, in high blood pressure, in stroke, and all manner of diseases, directly causing lung cancer. The world is well aware of that now. Its effects are more difficult to cleanse from the system than are those of liquor. It binds the victim in even stronger bonds of slavery than does the intoxicating cup. It is a disgusting habit, defiling to the user and very annoying to others. We rarely pass a crowd, but men will puff their poisoned breath in our faces. It is unpleasant, if not dangerous, to remain in a railroad car in a room where the atmosphere is impregnated by the fumes of liquor and tobacco. Now, the health authorities in our land have become more enlightened, and based on the lobby of the people, they have basically outlawed smoking cigarettes or smoking anything at all in certain places that they call public spaces. But I still go into places and I see people smoking even inside buildings, and even some of the people who work downtown, you know, some women and men who are working in the stores downtown. Some of them owned by Chinese, or people who look like Chinese. The owners of the store smoke inside the store, and breathe out the fumes on the people. So it's a dangerous thing for those people. But something that is probably more relevant or pertinent for us, or that is in our face, is the smoking of ganja. Almost anywhere you go, the in thing now is for you will see the young men. You will see the young men kneading their palms, or you will see them with something hanging off on their mouth, whether they are smoking it or not. So this is a kind of intemperance too, that we need to enlighten people on. And then it goes on. It says, "What power can the tobacco devotee have to stay the progress of intemperance? There must be a revolution upon the subject of tobacco before the axe will be laid at the root of the tree." Then these things are also mentioned: tea, coffee, and tobacco, as well as alcoholic drinks, are different degrees in the scale of artificial stimulants. So things that we want to avoid and that we want to educate people to avoid. Many of us sitting inside here, most of us sitting inside here, know about the tobacco, right? Right, brethren? We know about the alcohol, right? We know about the tea and the coffee, right? Maybe we don't know so much about the tea, because when we talk about tea, we're not talking about like some soursop leaf tea that you boil some water and pour it on the soursop leaf and dry it, or the lime leaf. We're talking about the plant tea itself. Right? We're talking about, there are different kinds of tea, like you have green tea, you have black tea. We're talking about the tea plant, the tea itself. So, you know, we all have internet, we can check it out. But we're not talking about like the moringa leaf that we can use and make some tea. We're not talking about we're talking about a specific plant, like how I'm talking about coffee. Yes. But you know, in the supermarket they would have different kinds of tea. Like they would have like peppermint tea. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the tea then, to put it that way. Yeah, the one that is tea. The one that is tea, where the plant is tea. Alright, so this is what it says. That tea, coffee, and tobacco, which we looked at before, as well as alcoholic drinks, are different degrees in the scale of artificial stimulants. Well, we know about alcohol, right? We are on board with alcohol. Now, we must not play with alcohol. And we want to educate our friends, educate our family members, not to be drinking alcohol. The effect of tea and coffee, as heretofore shown, tends in the same direction as that of wine and cider, liquor and tobacco. Tea is a stimulant and to a certain extent produces intoxication. It gradually impairs the energy of the body and mind. Its first effect is exhilarating because it quickens the motions of the living machinery, and the tea drinker thinks that it is doing him great service. But this is a mistake. When its influence is gone, the unnatural force abates, and the result is languor and debility corresponding to the artificial vivacity imparted. So the second effect of tea drinking is headache, wakefulness, palpitation of the heart, indigestion, trembling, and many other evils. Now, coffee is big business in the world and big business in our country, because we are said to have some of the best coffee in the world. Let me put best in quotation, right? Best. We are said to have some of the best coffee in the world. But we see from the Word of God that we should not be preparing coffee and selling coffee and putting coffee to people. So we can see that in that we are going contrary to what the Lord requires. Okay, so those are some of the things that we look at when we talk about being temperate. We're talking about the abstaining from the coffee, abstaining from the tea, the alcohol, the tobacco, the ganja, right? Coffee farm? Well, all right. If you ask me what I say about that, it will be clear from what we're reading that if you're going to stand on the truth as the Lord will, then I can't be in a position where I am selling coffee. That's why I go to the pharmacy. That's why I go to the pharmacy. We have to be consistent in what we believe in. Yes. There's one of our baptismal calls that speaks to being able to be saved, narcotic.
Alcohol, beverages, and so on. So we should not be involved in the growth of things that we do not promote at the park. So we will wear kids, because if we embrace that this is not our youth, we will pass it on.
And what do you think about making alcohol to sell to people? You know, yeah, you know. So that's what I'm thinking. So that's where we are. So we have to be consistent.
What about working for a company that has, let's say,
Well, if you ask me, we have to be consistent. If you ask me, that's what I would say. You know, I mean, to do what the Lord say now requires sacrifice. Requires sacrifice. Well, maybe that them sell other things too, you know. So yeah, so you know, right. So maybe you're not doing something. Yes. Yes. All right. So. Well, yes, it's a pity that you left at that time. But all right, continuing. Okay. You think I should repeat? You really think I should repeat? All right. How important is this matter of temperance? You know, is God? Well, it goes without question that God is very interested in the decisions that His people make. The Apostle Paul. All right, baby. Okay, the Apostle Paul, in talking about temperance, he said, the Apostle Paul here mentions the foot races, based on the scripture that we read, with which the Corinthians were familiar. The contestants in these races were subjected to the most severe discipline in order to fit them for the trial of their strength. Their diet was simple. Luxurious food and wine were prohibited, not on their table, right? Because they wanted to do well in the race. Their food was carefully selected. They studied to know what was best adapted to render them healthful and active and to impart physical vigor and endurance, that they might put as heavy a tax as possible upon their strength. Every indulgence that would tend to weaken the physical powers was forbidden. And this is from Signs of the Times, written in 1909. commenting on the people who are involved in athletic pursuits, how they made sure that their diet was simple. They can't be drunk with wine or even drunk with food, because their diet simple, because they are running this race and they want to win the race. What are they getting out of running the race? They are getting the praise and applause of their fellow men, and they are getting a wreath of flowers to put around their neck, and fame and so on. So that's what they get. But continuing, it says, if heathen men who were not controlled by enlightened conscience, who had not the fear of God before them, would submit to the deprivation and the discipline of training, denying themselves of every weakening indulgence, merely for a wreath of perishable substance and the applause of the multitude, how much more should they who are running the Christian race in the hope of immortality and the approval of high heaven be willing to deny themselves unhealthful stimulants and indulgences, which degrade the morals, enfeeble the intellect, and bring the higher powers into subjection to the animal appetites and passions. So they did it, and they still do it today, because we know about Usain Bolt, we know about this young lady who some time ago they gave her some tablet to take, and when they tested her, they found that she had a banned substance in her system. So the athletes today, they are strict regarding what they can use and what they cannot use. So consider us now, who shouldn't we be putting ourselves then in the best possible situation, physically, mentally, and spiritually, to be successful in the race that we are running? Because what is our goal? Our goal is what? Immortality. Isn't that so, brethren? A crown that fadeth not away. Isn't that so? So, which is more valuable? Usain Bolt is famous now. Can't hold him. Almost $100 million per year. Is what we working for? How does what we are striving for compare with what Usain Bolt get? It was far more valuable, brethren. Yeah. What we are striving for, what the Lord has prepared for us, is far more valuable. So therefore, if the men of this world should understand that they must be temperate, then we should be even more so. Isn't that so? Yes. But God is watching. Multitudes in the world are witnessing this game of life. This is our game now. The Christian warfare, that is our game. And this is not all. The monarch of the universe and the myriads of heavenly angels are spectators of this race. They are anxiously watching to see who will be successful overcomers and win the crown of life that fadeth not away. With intense interest, God and heavenly angels mark the self-denial, the self-sacrifice, and the agonizing efforts of those who engage to run the Christian race. So, brethren, you see it? It's not about entertainment, Consider it. Look at it. Agonizing efforts. These are some of the words used. Agonizing efforts. So he's not coming to church and having a good time. Be nicely entertained. Eh? Self-sacrifice. What sacrifice are we making? That's what, when we are temperate, we have to sacrifice certain things. Because if we used to love the alcohol, then when the Lord calls us, we have to lay that aside. If we can't expect to be smoking ganja, because it makes us feel good or so on, So the Lord, and the important thing, that God's eyes is upon us. God is watching us. But God is not watching us to destroy us, God is helping us. We have a helper in the Lord. God is our helper. The psalmist says, God is our very present help in trouble. The reward given to every man. All right, we can moving on. Now, so we understand that God is watching us. So just 2 more points I want to make, and then we close for tonight. All right. So we found that we see that God is very interested in how we fare in this warfare. Right? So remember, we are involved in a warfare. And if we're going to be successful in the warfare, we have to quit ourselves like men and fight. Because we have a foe that is against us. Right? So we are not playing. And Satan is certainly not playing with us. Now, a very important character from the Bible that demonstrates the benefits of temperance is Daniel in Babylon. So, is Daniel in Babylon. Reading again from Christian Temperance and Bible Hygiene, page 23. Daniel's parents had trained him in his childhood to habits of strict temperance. They had taught him that he must conform to nature's laws in all his habits. So same for us. So as we're looking at Daniel, we can see some things that we need to learn. Conform to nature's laws in all his habits. That is, eating and drinking had a direct influence upon his physical, mental, and moral nature. And that he was accountable to God for his capabilities. For he held them all as a gift from God, and must not, by any course of action, dwarf or cripple them. As the result of this teaching, the law of God was exalted in his mind, in Daniel's mind, and reverence in his heart. During the early years of his captivity, Daniel was passing through an ordeal which was to familiarize him with courtly grandeur, with hypocrisy, and with paganism. A strange school indeed, to fit him for a life of sobriety, industry, and faithfulness. And yet he lived uncorrupted by the atmosphere of evil with which he was surrounded. The experience of Daniel and his youthful companions illustrates the benefits that may result from an abstemious diet, and shows what God will do for those who will cooperate with him in the purifying and uplifting of the soul. They were an honor to God and a bright, shining light in the court of Babylon. In this history, we hear the voice of God addressing us individually, bidding us gather up all the precious rays of light upon this subject of Christian temperance. So temperance is a very important thing for us as Christians. In the Bible, Peter spoke about temperance. He says, add to your faith temperance. And Paul mentioned temperance as also one of the fruits of the Spirit. So temperance is very important. It's very important, right? And we see the blessing that came upon Daniel as a result of his purpose not to defile himself with the king's meat or with the wine that he drank. So the law of temperance, brethren, are you still with me? We're soon finished. The law of temperance, brethren, is given to us to be a blessing, to help us to help us as we wage warfare against our enemy and under the bloodstained banner of Christ. Now, final point. As we said previously, that temperance is Bible religion, right? In order rightly to understand the subject of temperance, we must consider it from a Bible standpoint. And nowhere can we find a more comprehensive and forcible illustration of true temperance and its attendant blessings than is afforded by the history of the prophet Daniel and his Hebrew associates in Babylon. So we can be temperate, and we should strive to be temperate as big people, as adults. And temperance is also something that we can teach to the children, because Daniel and his friends, they were young people, isn't that so? So the young men can be temperate, and we should train them as such, and the young women too, so that, because we see that Daniel and his friends who were in Babylon, Daniel determined that he would not defile himself with the food from the king, the rich, luxurious food from the king, and the wine that he drank. So in like manner, the limited time that we have tonight, we can learn some things, and then because temperance is so important to us, we can continue our study on that important subject of health. Right? Now, as I close here, I will tell you this about temperance, that temperance is indeed, now, God has, 8 things are given to us as God's doctors, are what we call the laws of health. And they are, you can find them in Ministry of Healing, page 128, entitled Natural Remedies. And as I close, these are the natural remedies: pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness. Now, what we have been talking about as temperance, another word for it is abstemiousness. Rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. Now, thank you very much for listening. Now, and I hope that what I've said will help to motivate us to at least investigate further on the subject of temperance. But now, our early Seventh-day Adventist brothers and sisters,